welcome to Talking Ted, a pop cult X show where we talk about Tori and Danny's favorite show, or one of our favorite show, if not the favorite, Ted Lasso. So we're on episode 11, Mom City. Another title could have been like Mom Forgiven or like Unforgiven, something like that. Because to me, I'll just jump right into it. But it was all about forgiveness this episode. And it was really fantastic. And I'll let you kick off our discussion, as it will. And we'll go from there. So just, Tori, tell us, what were your thoughts about this episode?
Oh, man. This was, in my opinion, arguably one of the best episodes out of all 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the writers and their writing was just so thoughtful and brilliant. It was perfect. It was a perfect episode. It starts off, first off, I love the way it started off, right? Ted's just having a normal day and walking down the street, and all of a sudden everyone's talking to him like, hey, like, how's it going? A very different intro to a couple of seasons ago, or even earlier this season when people were mad that Ted was even coaching us. Yes, calling Ted a wanker. And now they're like, hey, you're doing great, bro. Like, keep it up. You know, everyone, it's like picture perfect. And then record scratch. There's someone sitting on the bench and Ted realizes that it's his mom. And then, of course, cue up the intro music, right? I thought that was such a great intro. I mean, it's so theatrical. And it was just a great entrance for the character of Dottie Lasso.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it was great. It really was. I mean, just the walk, like you said, it really shows how he's been taken in by the community, right? And how he's become one of them, which plays a key part in the rest of the episode, I think. So he's really now one of the Richmond Green, right? I think he really is.
Yeah, it definitely shows that he is where he belongs, or at least it feels that way, in a sense. And so it's just like, man, this is what he's been working towards, right? Like, just the community actually welcoming him with open arms. He has a place here, and it took him 3 years to get there, but gosh darn it, he's there. So, man, the rest of the episode is us sort of getting to know the woman that is Ted Lasso's mom, Dottie Lasso. And it's a really interesting dynamic, because I'm not super close with my mom either. I think we've talked about it before, like, therapy was not really a thing in my family. Like, just, you kind of just, like, if you have feelings that are tough to talk about, just like keep them inside and ignore them.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and like, it's great, and we have a good time when we hang out together or whatever, and I love her a lot and she loves me. But like, we don't get that deep. And so we get aggravated with each other a lot. And you can sort of see that tension, right? Like, Ted's walking around. We expect him, the person that he is, to be super sunshine and rainbows and excited, but that's not how he is with his mom there at all. And so I related to that so much. Like, love my mom, but I think maybe her being there sometimes could be bring a little bit of anxiety and like dread. Not dread. Dread's a little dramatic, but like, oh man, like, all right,
Yeah, you could see that definitely in the way Sudeikis played the character, with the facial expressions, with just the mannerisms, the whole shift from his normal Ted Lasso's self to now being Dottie Lasso's son.
Just uncomfortable. Yeah, it's just uncomfortable. So I thought that was interesting, because I think a lot of us had very different expectations about how this episode would go and how meeting, Mrs. Lasso would go. But I thought that was the most down-to-earth, real interaction with a mom character that I've ever seen, because Rebecca's mom is so over the top. It's a little unrealistic, right? It's like fairy tale. And she has her own problems too. But this, I was like, wow, they really captured that, like, mother son or daughter interaction of like, oh, you're here, mom. Oh,
I was watching oh goodness, what's his name? A stand-up bit by I can't think, Nick Kroll, and he talked about
oh yeah,
how everyone hates their mom, and he says, here's an example of everyone out there when their mom calls and hangs up or something
yeah.
like that. So
Really accurate. Every time I'm like, and then like,
exactly.
I answer it. Do I want to get into this right now, or do I just like pretend like I didn't hear it ringing?
So yeah, exactly. So that's it is, but that's what you said, that his relationship and his on screen, how they had played it was very authentic, because that's
Yes.
how ma- probably the majority of us would react when our mom, especially what we learned later on in the episode, especially knowing that and taking a look back at it at the beginning and say, oh, okay, that's why. That's
Yes.
why.
And
Yeah.
then dropping in unannounced too. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I need at least a couple weeks planning of like, hey, like you're coming all the way here, like ready. It's a little rude on her part. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying, drop in.
Mm-hmm.
He only coaches a premier football team.
And not just dropping in, but spending a week in a hostel before you go see him.
Yes, which that was also very realistic too. I just thought it was funny. Older, right? You wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
expect someone like that to have those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever, I studied abroad in Spain, like I stayed in hostels, like I went and backpacked around and it's like, nope, those are some pretty accurate experiences. Like I didn't experience it, but I saw it, so did Miss Lasso, like it happened. So
Mm-hmm.
that just made me crack up. But yeah, I mean, let's walk through the rest of the episode, right? So Miss Lasso ends up coming to work with Ted
Mm-hmm.
after a whole fight of, are you going to sleep on the bed? Am I going to sleep on the couch? Whatever. He's already clearly frustrated, throws his hands up when she walks out the door, invites her to work anyways. And I think her interactions with everybody at work were really interesting. I think it was kind of what a lot of people they wanted to meet her, and then they're like, "Oh, you're Ted Lasso's mom." They knew the instant they saw her.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the kind of interaction that you almost dread when you're afraid of what your parents or mom's gonna say, right? And
Oh,
so
yes.
she loves to embellish stories, and she did that several times. And it's funny how Ted was like telling the truth of what actually happened to compared to what she said. Although I do want to know what kind of poop candy bar he ate, or what that story was
It was a
behind.
butter. That was a callback to season one.
Okay.
So season one, right? He's in the office. Can't remember who he's talking to. I can't remember who he's talking to, but he's in the office. He's like, yes, this kid, little Ronnie Fouch. He told everybody that it was a Butterfingers, but
Oh,
all he poop in a Butterfinger wrapper. And this whole time we thought this story was like Ted was like, yeah, and you never believe little Ronnie Fouch. And then you don't think it was him who did it. You're like, nobody ever saw him do it. But some
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
said some people said they ate it. And then it turns out it was Ted who did it. It happened to Ted. He lived it firsthand. So that's definitely for us dedicated word for word fans. You immediately it was a callback to season one for sure. That cracked me up. And the fact
No.
that not only that, but he's still in his next story about getting arrested, continued to hang out with Ronnie Fouch well into his teens
Mm-hmm.
because Ronnie Fouch was the one throwing gang signs at the
The
cop car.
cops.
So, like he ate the kids and still was friends with him. Like,
Small
bruh.
town, huh?
So small town. It's gotta be. I just love that part too. The storytelling and being
Mm-hmm.
like, no, it don't happen that way, mom. Like you're a little off.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really great to learn where where Ted Lasso gets his, I guess his um constant optimism, upbeat nature, and you can see that it
Yeah.
comes from his mom, definitely.
Yeah.
And so he
Yes.
gets the although she makes a speech at the end, which talks, or no, May makes a speech to them
Mhm.
in the bar to Ted about getting the best and worst parts of your parents and how they were just
Mhm.
trying their best. And I thought that speech was so wonderful. The
It's
whole
actually a
episode.
poem.
Yes, I figured it was a poem. It sounded very poetic. I just haven't looked it up which one it was. Maybe you did that.
I did. I don't want to exit out of the screen. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it is a poem. And the way that she delivered it, though, I
Hmm.
mean, I only know because I looked it up afterwards. But the way she delivered it, I mean, man,
Yeah.
you would have never known. It just felt so organic
Hmm.
and spoken so beautifully. It really sounded and felt like it was coming from her heart and a place that she had experienced herself. So well done to that actress. I mean, that scene, she made that scene
Yeah.
completely.
Completely agree. It was a wonderful, well, now I know a poem, but it was very poetic when I was hearing it. I was like, oh, wow, is this like it almost sounded like a Shakespeare soliloquy to me. So, because it had
Mm,
that sort of like cadence to it. So I was like, oh,
yeah.
wow, that's really cool. But sometimes I have to go back and watch it with subtitles on because sometimes it's hard to understand just some of
Yes.
the with the accents and all. But it was just
Yeah.
so moving and so touching. I just thought it was so well done. Um,
Yeah. That was a great part. And it was something that Ted needed to hear because it changed his entire perspective. I mean, she just
Absolutely.
went the whole day. Ted's clearly annoyed, but like is too nice to let his mom know that
Hmm.
he's annoyed, especially when meeting Rebecca, right?
Hmm.
Strolls into her office and she's like, "Oh, who is this?" And she's like, "I'm Ted's bodyguard." And then, and Rebecca's like, "Oh my God, you're Ted's mom." Like she knew. I
Hmm.
just thought that was, I mean, that shows you their friendship. And like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, Rebecca knew immediately just from the 3 years of knowing Ted, like, this is his mom. And it gets a little personal later on. And she's like, "How are you feeling?" And he's like, I'm great. She goes,
Oklahoma.
"Oklahoma?"
Hmm.
Again, the second time we've heard her do that. And he's like, "Not great. I'm not doing all right."
Yeah.
So I just think that goes to show again, like just their friendship that they have. They genuinely just care so much about each other, like picking up on those mannerisms and quotes. And yeah, I think just after a very long day, the team loves her. Her comment with Trent about his hair that everyone on Twitter has been saying and thinking about Trent Crim's hair for 3 seasons now. And Ted Lasso's mom sure as heck was going to make sure to point it out.
Yeah, it was great, and how Trent spent time with her afterwards because he wanted to get stories from his mom for the book. I'm sure that he's writing, and it was just because she has tons of stories. You know it,
Mm.
and you know that they're probably all going to be somewhat embellished and somewhat blown out of proportion, but it's going to be just fantastic to hear. Hopefully, we'll get to see some sort of what the book has written about, as this series or season concludes. Um, because I'd be curious to see what Trent writes about.
I would love that too. I just don't know how in one more episode how much they're going to be able to fit about that. I think maybe it might be one of those things where we see the book cover in like a bookshop maybe or
Maybe,
something that says
yeah.
away or I don't know. I don't think we're going to get too much of a dive into that book, maybe other than the dedication to Ted if he dedicates the book to Ted. I don't know. But I don't think we're going to get as much of that as we want.
Yeah, that's true.
And we're gonna have to be okay with that because there's only one episode left. And we squeezed so much into this last one. I just don't know how much more. There's just so much left to do and to finish up. So, I think this is a good transition into the next part, which another big storyline here is probably the main storyline, aside from Ted, Jamie.
Oh, yeah.
And, we see him kind of
Hmm.
acting weird the whole episode and just kind of being too polite, right? In the press conference and with everybody being too nice. And, Roy, oi, Todd, and Ted's mom's like, uh-oh, someone's in trouble. But
He's like,
Trent's like, no, that's just his love language. Yelling
uh-huh.
is his love. Like Trent knows now. He's been around. So do you want to take away the big chat that happens in the boot room that Will just happened to first time?
Yeah, that was funny. So they go into the boot room so that Trent can have one of his legendary speeches with the player, and because they've become, I think, very, you know, moving, and he's taking on his role as that coach, and that's what he is known for, as the motivator, the almost like the counselor in a way. People go to him, and or no, people don't go to him, but he makes himself available.
Available. I
Yeah.
like that.
So he goes in there and they have a chat, and he's expecting Tart to like yell at him or get upset with him, but then we just see Phil Dunster break into the awkwardest, funniest crying moment ever. It was just hilarious. And Roy tries to counsel him, tries to, but he doesn't know exactly what's wrong. Um, and so he, at the end, like you said, Will walks in. I thought that was funny because he said, "Oh, you missed one. You missed a good one."
A good one. Because he's always there at the wrong
Mm-hmm.
time. Just happens to catch all these very personal moments. And then this probably was one of the best ones to have been in. Wasn't there?
Yeah.
Like they're kind of in on the bit now. Like, oh, well, we thought you were going to be here, but.
Yeah. And it really just expounded upon Jamie Tart's character and what growth he's gone from wanting to be the center, the prick, so to speak, to now
Yeah.
being just one of the team, and always wanting to help boost up everyone else.
Mm.
And they really dive into what the issue was with him as the episode progressed.
Yeah.
And we also get to meet Jamie Tart's mom, which I thought was really cool and really fun. And it was just a very different dynamic than from what Ted and his mom have.
Right.
And you could tell that she was a mom when she had Jamie. Their closeness, they have a much tighter bond, I would think. It seems like, and it's just so he gets to open up to her. Actually, before they go there, Roy enlists Keeley to try and talk to Jamie about what's wrong, and then of course Keeley says something wrong and makes it worse for Jamie. So I thought that
Makes
was
it work.
funny.
That was
But
good. That was a good little bit there.
yeah, because you think, oh, Keely, yeah, she'll fix it. Yeah, because she knows Jamie, she'll be able to fix him. But makes it worse by, yeah, you're going back to your home team, your home stadium. Yeah, they're going to hate you. They're going to yell at you. Yeah, your dad's going to be there. He's going to be talking all sorts of stuff to you because he hasn't seen his dad since the incident at Wembley Stadium, which I thought was
Yes.
one of the key turning points for Jamie's character, that he
Mm.
finally stood up to his dad. But of course, we learn now that that was really what's bugging him to his soul right there.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the fact that, yeah, he didn't want to play for his dad, but now that he's not playing for his dad, feels like there's an emptiness. And it was really a moving performance by Phil Dunster. And like you said, he should get the Emmy for this. He really should. It's just been such a great season for him, and because he's had ups, downs, everywhere in between, and he's just played them all perfectly.
Mm. That was pretty well said. Yeah, I mean, I really don't have anything else to add to that. Aside from, I thought it was hilarious. Like you said, his mom was younger. We found out in season 1 that he does want to play. He wants to play for his mom. She doesn't care about his wins or losses like Ted, right? She
Right.
just cares about him having fun and being happy. And, he throws his first pair of boots into the curse fire. And that was the first time we saw him open up. And now here we are 3 seasons later with this full circle moment, meeting this woman that made Jamie Tart the man that he was and man he is.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was sweet getting to see his authentic self. I also thought it was great to see her with a wonderful man who is so kind and funny. and just so genuine. And then
Yeah.
I was cracking up because, like, okay, Jamie's mom is kind of hot. I'm just gonna say it. Jamie's mom's hot, and Roy got a little bit of some revenge for Jamie talking about his sister, right? Jamie having some eyes out for
He's
Roy,
just staring at her.
right? So Roy kind of got back at Jamie with a, look, your mom's hot, bro. So, oh, and how funny was that scene too when they walk into his childhood room
and
they see the Roy Kent poster and they see the Keeley poster, and it's just pure poetry in writing there. So perfect.
It was perfect. It really was.
Jamie said that in season 1. I've had a poster of you on my wall since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And that poster, it just first off puts into perspective how much older Roy is than Jamie. Yeah. But also just that picture, it looked like what, like esque picture. I'm like, what is this hair? Like, that was the funniest picture ever.
It was hilarious, and I think the Jamie's stepdad, when he brought him in to the room, and he says, "Oh yeah, posters have come and gone throughout the years, but this one's always stayed." And then you hear Roy in his normal. Yeah. Several people did that in this episode, which I thought was funny. The long exaggerated curse. Yeah, because Ted Lasso did it, Beard did it, Roy did it, and I just thought it was really cool. And Keeley, when all of a sudden the door closes and there's Keeley with the 2 soccer balls in front of her.
It was perfect. It
really was.
Like, all these little things that were said in season 1 and season 2 are like, we're getting to see them, and Roy's even realizing it too. Like, how weird is it that we're sitting in his childhood room and that we care about him?
Yes.
So the characters themselves are starting to realize that too, the growth.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
So anyways, let's get to the game, right? The big game, Man City, Mom City, Man City, whatever. So the game is a big one. They have to win it in order to make it into the finals. If they lose, Manchester City wins the Premier League. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So they have to win it, right, to stay alive.
Yes.
And so they're making fun of Van Damme with his new soccer mask from the last episode of breaking his nose. That the mask is just such a funny little moment there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, Jamie is playing like heck, like he's really getting beat up. They're
crowd, attacking him. Mm-hmm.
He did not leave Man City on good terms.
No, he did not. He left the team to go do a reality show. And yeah, he just walked away from his contract and went to a reality show, which he got kicked off. And that was probably, at the time, it wasn't a hard decision for him to do that. But I mean, to come back now to a city where he grew up in, and he's one of their own, and to hear them taunt him and, make fun of him, and then to have the players constantly be very physical with him. So he takes him out of his element. But as the game progresses, and to get back to Van Damme, like you said, I think it was really good and really awesome that they had Van Damme be a superstar in that game. Because he needed it. Yes, he needed to show that, even though he got his nose broken, he was still a top level competitor.
Yeah, and not just that, he was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. He saved the game for them, basically, especially when they were playing a man short after Jamie Tartt got injured. So it was just wonderful. And I like the fact that Lasso knew that Tartt could get back in there, and he just had to give him time. He knew that his heart was in it and that he had to have that redemption in front of the fans. So it was almost like a Rocky moment in a way, like Rocky 4 when he goes to fight Drago in Russia and the crowd's all against him. But then at the end of the match, they realize Rocky's heart, and they're cheering and supporting him. So same way as Jamie Tartt. So Jamie, got all the boos, got all the harassment from the fans, but especially when he got injured, they were laughing him off the field. Haha, you're soft. And then he goes back in and has this marvelous run where he goes and scores basically the clinching goal in a way. that puts it out of
Mhm.
reach. And then as he got substituted out for, they were applauding him because they knew that he was one of their own. And they realized that, yeah, this kid has heart. He has something. And so they him know that they appreciated his effort by, give him a huge ovation. And I thought that was very touching.
See, it's interesting that you saw it that way. I can see that. I can totally see that. But the way that when I was watching it, I felt Ted was more out of his element than ever. Like, I didn't see it as he was doing that on purpose because he believed in Jamie. I saw it as Ted doesn't know what he's doing. At the end of the day, he's a football coach. He's not a soccer coach. And this was one of those freak out moments. He knew it was on the line. He was already stressed out, nearly had a panic attack in his office. And the team has just relied on Jamie so much. Ted froze up and he tried to go with what was constant and tried to keep Jamie in because that's all that he knew. I thought it was a
Interesting.
little selfish of him to do that because
Hmm.
not give a player that's been riding the bench all season the chance to shine, right? Total disrespect to that other player to say, we'd rather play with 10 men than to put you in. You know what I'm saying? So that's
Well,
how that's the way that I saw it. And Ted was freaking out. And then you could see Nate, of course, we'll get to this in a little bit, but Nate is watching the game from the restaurant,
mhm.
wondering what the heck Ted's doing. Like, what are you doing? Nate was always the strategist.
Yeah.
And even Beard and Roy are like, Ted, what are you
Yeah, like you
doing?
got to make a decision, and yeah, they were worried about time, and well, I don't know in football or soccer when substitutions occur, the player can't. That's it; they're done. Is that correct? I don't know if that's the
I
case or not.
don't I don't think so, but I know it's like that in rugby, but I can't remember about that in soccer. And my sister was a pro soccer player, and I can't even remember.
That's why I was asking you. I was relying on you to tell me
Um,
that.
if that is the case, then I do understand, and your theory would totally make a lot more sense in that scenario. If not, if they are able to come back in, then I think it was sort of just a. Either way, I think Ted was sort of freaking out a little bit, but
Yeah.
him talking to Jamie in that moment when Jamie gets
Oh.
hurt
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing him on the ground and saying like, man, what's going on? You're okay. What's up? You've been acting weird this whole week. And Ted really steps in as the father that Jamie's never had.
Yeah.
uh, and he's there for him in his moment of weakness and tells him, you don't have to play angry. You don't have to be upset about what your dad. I mean, you can be upset about what your dad did too. It was horrible, but you don't have to hold on to that. You can forgive him and move on. And Jamie's like, well, I don't want to give that to him. And Ted says this wonderful line of it. It's not for him, Jamie. It's not if you forgive him, he doesn't win, right? If you forgive him, that's
It's
for
for
yourself.
yourself. Mhm.
And Jamie realizes that. And that's sort of, we see him later texting his dad after the game. He reaches out, hey, haven't heard from you in a long time, are you doing okay? And we see this really great quick scene. If you didn't see it, or if you looked away, you would have missed it. But
Mhm.
it looked like Jamie's dad was in rehab.
Exactly, and especially when they cut to the scene with his dad's two friends. Oh, he would have loved this, and they like did like a little, cheers to him, and they took a drink because
Yeah, he
yeah,
would have been proud. He would have been
he would
proud.
have been proud, right?
So I think,
Yeah.
going back to what you said, it wasn't that Wembley wasn't just a life changing moment for Jamie, but it apparently was a life changing moment for his dad too.
Hmm.
So, just what a beautiful message. I mean, rehabilitation, forgiveness, letting go. It doesn't always work like that in real life, but sometimes it does. And that was just the motivation that he needed to get back in that game. Colin scored, he assisted and Colin scored, and then Jamie got that game winning goal that, like you mentioned. But yeah, I mean, whew, that was a powerful 10 minutes. I mean,
Yeah,
geez.
yeah, it really was, and especially like at the end of the game when Ted goes up to meet the coach of Man City, who's played by the
Yeah.
real life coach.
Yeah.
And Pep tells Ted, wins and losses don't matter. It's about making these players the best they can be on and off the field, which is what Ted's been trying to do this whole entire time. So I thought that was perfect.
Yes. But see, people are okay with Pep saying that because he's the guy.
Right.
When Ted says it, it's like, oh, well, you're this stupid American that doesn't actually care because you're not going to win. So I think it was a little reassuring to Ted, like, hey, man, you're doing the right thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keep doing your thing. And then, of course, Beard's like, oh. And then Higgins was so funny. He had such good moments in this episode. Like, he couldn't move, and Rebecca turns his head, like, for him. I love the friendship that they have now, too. It's great. Them not taking the jet because Nora wants to be more economic.
More environmentally friendly. Yeah.
Yeah, or environmental. Yes, that's what it was. So good little moments there between Rebecca and Higgins. They were sort of what felt like the comedic relief almost.
Yeah, I agree. And because it was very, in a way, heavy from all the topics they've talked on. So to have that comic relief was good. Another storyline that's evolving in there is Nate.
Yes.
And as we see in this episode now, he's now working at the Taste of Athens with his girlfriend, who always disappears whenever he says that, Jade.
So funny.
So it's really cool. And so when we first see him working there, we see Isaac, Colin, and who else showed up? They showed up and Will, the Kit Man,
and Will
show up at Taste of Athens to invite Nate to come back to Richmond. So it was the first outreach toward them. And we learn later on that, of course, Higgins is the one who sent them to go reach out to Nate to ask him if he'd consider coming back. And then, of course, Nate's like, Ted doesn't know, then never mind, I don't want any part of it. And Jade, at that time, we see that she's formulating a plan. She realizes that his path is not at Taste of Athens. It's in coaching, and in coaching specifically back at Richmond. So she gets the wheels moving. She talks to Derek, the manager. She has something over him. So
I'm like, what is it? Who did this man kill? Something. Okay, something. That is such a funny scene. He's like, I can't tell you, or else you're gonna know now too.
Right. So she gets him fired from there to kind of help light the fire under him to get back into coaching, which it does work. And we see him he's working on his thesis statement of an apology letter to Ted. It's like 60 pages long so far, and he has to trim it.
60 pages. I'm like, that is so Nate. Like, I probably don't have a lot to say, but 60 pages, man. Come on. Also, we love a good supportive girlfriend, okay? I told you that we were going to like Jade.
Yeah.
She has been herself. She has really stepped up this season. So, and then she starts editing his paper too. Like, you only need like 3 words here. But while they're editing that paper, someone shows up.
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, we just say Higgins comes into the office and tells everyone about inviting Nate back to come coach, and he wants to check in with Ted, see if he's okay with it. Ted's fine with it. Roy's fine with it because Nate is good at all the stuff he's bad at. Then they ask Coach Beard, and he's like, if you bring him back, I will burn this place down. Which I thought was a bit...
He's looking out for his friend, though.
Exactly.
Like, and we find out in just a little bit why Beard is so protective over Ted. But I mean, he's the only one who's not on board. Ted is very forgiving and he's willing, but we just got to get Beardo on the team. So what does he do?
So of course, like you were saying, when they're working on their apology letter, there's a knock at the door, and when we see Nate go answer and go look at. And he stops stunned because we see the outline of Beard in the hallway in a very dramatic, almost like Friday the 13th or Michael Myers pose where he's just standing there. The serial killer has come.
That was so funny. Like that perfect moment. But also before we finish that though, we gotta talk about why Beard finally showed up at his door.
Yes, because
The
so
the
after
video.
after the Man City match, they're back at Ted's office and they're watching the video of when Nate ripped up the sign. And so Ted calls Beard over and he's like, "Look at this." And he's like, "Oh, I've seen that." "Well, we've seen that." Then he said, "No, keep watching." So, so they keep watching. And then we see Nate have to crawl underneath the desk for like 3 hours as the team's celebrating their win. And then as he
Another
gets up,
2 hours.
and then he gets up to go, but then the cleaning crew comes in, so he has to hide back underneath the desk. So he's under there for like 5 hours. And then when he gets up to go again, the doors are now locked. So he has to sneak out of the window. But you see him all the time. He puts out the trash can for the cleaning crew. He closes the window behind him. So it's still
Very
very,
polite.
yeah, very polite. And it was just very Nate like. Yeah.
But it's also heartbreaking to watch because you're like, man, this guy had the worst day of his life. And then it just kept getting worse, like series of unfortunate events worse. And you can see Beard's face like dropping after
Mm-hmm.
every unfortunate thing happens. And then he starts feeling bad for Nate. And he's like, man, this kid really suffered.
Yeah,
And
and
yeah,
Lasso tells him if we can't forgive someone on the worst day of their life, or they don't deserve a second chance, and then we see Beard, his
yep,
long. So that leads up to
to that scene you were talking about.
yep. So we learn, we hear a great backstory about how Ted and Coach Beard met,
Mm.
and it was quite interesting and quite telling of why Beard is so protective
Oil.
of Ted. And
Yeah.
so it boils down to they met in football because Beard was a backup punter or kicker, and Ted was a backup kicker, or vice versa. And so they spent a lot of time jogging together. They never got into a game, but that's how their initial friendship was formulated. And then after college, of course, Beard gets in trouble with the law because he steals a loaf of meth. That was hilarious.
I was not expecting it to get that dark. I was like, what? He said, it's very lame, Miz. And he goes, yeah, except I stole a loaf of meth. And I was like,
Right. It was very Les Mis because Beard, after Ted Lasso gives him a place to stay, a place to live, he steals his car. So, and it could have been over because that could have broken Beard's parole. He could have gone back to prison, but Ted says, "Oh no, I let him borrow it." So,
like, literally stands up for him he lies to stand up for him so that he doesn't go back to jail. Like, what love?
Yeah.
What love and friendship. That is just, it's immense. It's so immense you can't even fathom it. And that shows why their relationship is the way that it is. I mean,
exactly.
Him a lot. I mean, he doesn't have to, but after that, man.
Yeah. And it was just
a horrible moment.
It was just so wonderful to hear that and to understand where their relationship dynamic comes from and why they always can rely on each other and they know they're going to have each other's back through thick and thin. So I thought that was really cool because it's a really special relationship and I've really enjoyed watching it. And now to learn how it started, I thought was so cool. So Joe Kelly, the main writer on this episode, kudos. Thanks for giving us that.
Yes.
But so Beard tells Nate, "Oh," Nate says to him, "Are you going to headbutt me? I feel like this is a headbutt moment." So he brings him in close, and just they touch foreheads, and I thought that was really touching.
That was so touching, and we see Beard have a single tear. That man has never had emotions in his life, and here he is pouring himself out to someone that he hated.
Yeah.
That he saw as a son, like Ted, who turned into someone that he hated, to now turning into someone that he is now giving that second chance to.
Exactly.
It's a full circle moment for Beard because Beard was probably like, Ted should never have taken a second chance on me. And he never thought he would have the chance himself to give someone else a second chance like he got. It was very meaningful for him to be like, look, I've turned my life around. Ted gave me the job, the house, the life, we're giving you the job and you have everything
the
else.
life is up to you.
Up to you. It's so important. And not just that, but like, again, this is not just some funny show about an American guy with a mustache coaching football, right?
Right.
I mean, this is a big problem in America right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Felons not being able to get jobs, people going to jail for minor crimes and staying in jail, like having unreasonable jail sentences and bail, and them not being properly equipped to go back into the real world, not having like rehab or therapy, like just sort of getting thrown to the real world, and they're setting up for failure.
Yeah,
and
very true.
Like that's a very real issue today. And felons, you can't get a good job. No one will hire you. And
right.
That's a major issue, and it's a major hindrance. And that's why a lot of former felons end up on the street and back on drugs, right?
And then back in jail, and the cycle continues. Yep.
And so what a incredible way and moving and enthralling way to bring up a topic as difficult to talk about as that.
Yeah, very true.
I mean, how do you sneak that into the storylines? These writers are incredible. Like you said, Joe Kelly, incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
It was very unexpected to hear about Beard's past, but like you said, it was very moving that they brought in the second chances, and that's what a lot of people, sometimes that's all they need. And maybe we're even seeing that in the show itself with Nate, and also with Jamie's dad going to rehab, getting that second chance. So they also bring up a lot about therapy, of which of course we saw in season 2 with Sharon being there, but also we learn more about what it meant to Ted and his mom, and that great scene between the two of them at the end of this episode, where Ted's like, "Thank you for taking me to the grocery store, putting googly eyes on the vegetables, but F you for thinking that it was okay just to dismiss everything that happened with Dad. F you for not taking care of yourself and then expecting me just to cover it up too." So I thought that honest interaction between them was probably long overdue, but Ted didn't have the I guess the right methods to handle it until he started seeing Dr. Sharon. So
yeah, I mean, not just the methods, but the mental capacity. I mean, the man had been bottling things up since he was 16, right? I mean, that's over 2 decades, almost maybe 3 decades, depending on how old he is, of just having to grow up so young and shoulder all of that pain and take care of the rest of the family because the mom couldn't. And didn't address it. I mean, wow, that I cried. I'm not even gonna lie. I got misty-eyed during that entire speech because it's just so real. Like I said, his interactions with his mom was so real. And then you see the mom kind of come back and like, you know what? Like, you're right. I didn't know why I felt like I had to bottle everything up and pretend like everything was okay. And that led to you having to do that. But I did what I could, and I did what I had to survive. I did what I knew. And I'm sorry that it wasn't better. And they kind of start talking about therapy. Like, wow, this therapist must be really doing some good things for you. And he's like, you have no idea. I'm going to talk to her about this later. Like, and you would sort of open the door for now mom can find healing, right?
Yeah.
This was something 20, 30 plus years coming, and just the release and vulnerability between them two had to be just so like the world is off your shoulders now.
Absolutely.
But in the middle of that, his mom dropped something very real on Ted, and he's like, "Why'd you come out here? What did you just come out and tell me?" And she goes, "You know what? I did come out here for a reason. I do have something to say to you, and that's your son misses you."
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, that was hard. Yeah. Oh.
Jason will win an Emmy for this scene alone. I'm just handing out Emmys here, okay? and May, get one for your poem. Jamie, get. Jason Sudeikis will win an Emmy for this moment.
Yeah.
His response, I miss him too. I know he misses me. I'm stuck and I don't know what to do, and it's just a lot, basically. And you just see how hurt he is. I mean, that broke him. And of course, they end and Ted's like, let me make dinner for you. And they're good now and they're healing. Now leads us to the final scene.
Yes.
Is the truth bomb, right?
The part of the season that would come like a tradition, where this episode, the one before the last, where Rebecca drops a truth bomb on Ted. But this episode, she tells him, I have nothing. I can't think of anything.
This whole build up, like she's looking at the thing. I think she's going to turn around and tell Ted that she's in love with him, of course. My Ted because, I mean, the fact that she has even made this like a tradition between the two of them.
Yeah.
It's so sweet. And I'm just like, she's going to tell him that she loves him. Then big fat nothing, like you said. Flip this on us. And they even flipped the position to which they were standing. The editing. AJ Catone or Catone, I don't know how to say it, but y'all crushed that.
And then, of course, Ted says, well, I have one for you. Cut to black.
And that's how it is. I'm like, this is not Inception. Ted, we need to know what happened. Like, don't leave. Obviously, we're going to find out next episode what it was. I think we both know Ted's truth bomb is that he is probably going to be leaving AFC Richmond and he's going to go home.
Yeah. So I was looking while watching it. There was a couple songs that played during the episode. So the music supervisor, I think Krista Miller was one of them. And she's like the wife of Bill Lawrence. So
yes,
she did a wonderful job. And there's a song in there by Sam Ryder called Fought and Lost, which I think is just such a marvelous song. And it was perfect for the moment that it played in the episode. At first, I thought it was a Queen song because it sounded like very much a Queen-esque vibe to it. So I looked it up, and this gentleman, Sam Ryder, just perfect. But the song by Brandi Carlile at the credits called Home, also another telling moment.
Yes.
And the pinball machine that Ted is playing, of course, in the bar, Wizard of Oz, there's no place like home. And I just thought that was perfect, and everything adding up to the truth bomb of, which we'll find out next week, which of course, everything's like shaping up perfectly, I think, to be Nate's coming back. They have a new Wonder Kid coach. Ted misses his son so much, wants to go home. So we know where he's going.
They're going to understand. People will understand. I don't think they're going to hold him. I don't think that they're going to be upset with him for wanting to go see his son. I think they're going to be sad, but it is the reality. Like, this guy packed up his entire life and moved here to do this. And it led him to a divorce and almost probably losing some custody of his son since he doesn't get to see him all the time. But I think people will understand. They're going to be very heartbroken. But, everything you just mentioned, like all of the Wizard of Oz moments and little Easter eggs throughout this season especially has been so telling. Like, he's gonna clack his heels together. He's probably gonna wear some red J's, clack his little heels together 3 times and be whisked away back home. There's just so many references. It's just undeniable at this point. And I actually saw on Twitter, I think Brandon Hunt was talking, like, I couldn't believe it, but Jason got, Brandi Carlile to sing that song for us, and it was so special. And we know he's always supported her outside of the Ted Lasso universe. I mean, in a lot of his, in-person and public appearances, he mentions her songs. He was also a music guest on the episode that he hosted SNL. There's so many interviews where he talks highly about Brandi Carlile and her music. Just thought that was a cool little tribute to add her in. But I think at one point too, didn't someone say, like, man, we're heading down the yellow brick road now or something like that in this episode? I can't remember if it was Beard or Roy or someone, but yeah, I mean the either way, the Wizard of Oz, the Kansas references, the sunflower bread that was baked at the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's all pointing back to Kansas. So unfortunately, I think we do know what the truth bomb is, but we're gonna have to wait until next week.
Yeah.
To see. What a way to end. What a way to end that episode. So aggravating, but also like, you're so good. So good.
Right. It is. It was like you said, the perfect episode. It really was. It really, really was. But I want to leave you with this. So on Apple TV's thing, they don't have series finale listed under the next episode. They have season finale. So
I know. The investigator in me wants to look into, turn over, flip over, dive into everything. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to assume or say anything because I don't want to get my hopes up and break everybody's hearts and break my own heart. Okay. I'm guarding my heart here by saying I'm not going to look into it, but I do think it is telling that it said series finale season finale rather than series finale. Because that means just don't potential for a spinoff or another season.
Spinoff or season 4 with Nate as the head coach of AFC Richmond.
I don't think spinoffs are unrealistic. I think they've even mentioned in interviews that they could happen.
Yeah.
So I will leave that question open-ended to your interpretation, but I definitely think it's exciting that it says season finale rather than series finale. So we'll see. Excellent. One more episode.
One more episode to go. It's going to be great. No matter if it's the season or series finale, it's going to be probably one of the highest rated episodes on Apple Plus, of course, or in streaming history. It's going to break records. And kudos to everyone involved with the show, especially this episode. It was just fantastic.
Fantastic. And we will leave you guys with the same way that Jason and the writers left us. Until next week, so long, farewell, the title of the next episode. So we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, everyone.